Hello everyone. Thank you all for watching the video. Wishing you all good health and peace. The dawn crept over the mountains, its light a soft whisper, threading through mist that draped the hills like a veil over unspoken truths. Lytuca stirred, her breath mingling with the morning's chill, the air sharp with dew and the faint tang of earth. Roosters crowed, their calls slicing the hush, and she stepped onto the packed dirt of their bamboo house, its walls weathered by rain and time. Her hands, roughened by years of labor, brushed the hearth's ashes, coaxing flames to life, their glow a fragile promise in the dim. A pot of rice porridge simmered, its steam curling like memories she held close. For her daughter Han, who slept still, her small form curled under a quilt, her breath a quiet rhythm. Beyond the yard, papaya trees stood heavy with fruit, their leaves swaying in the breeze, and Lytuca's heart stirred, a tide of love and worry, as if the day already carried the weight of secrets it might unveil. Their home clung to a slope, a humble shelter of bamboo and thatch, cradled by the mountain's embrace. The yard was a patchwork of life, papaya trees laden with green and gold, a chicken coop humming with soft clucks, a vegetable patch where mustard greens curled toward the sun. Each morning Lytuca gathered eggs, their shells warm in her palms, or fed Han, her tiny hands eager for the day's warmth. Today, Han was with her grandmother, her giggles a distant echo down the trail, and Lytuca prepared to climb the hill, her basket slung over her shoulder, her steps sure despite the ache in her bones. Tien, her husband, was already gone, his motorbike's hum fading into the valley, off to the wood factory where he'd found work. The promise of a steady wage warmed her, yet a shadow lingered. His late returns, his quiet glances, the whispers of a woman's name. Her heart wavered, torn between trust and a fear she couldn't name, as if the mountain itself held truths it wouldn't share. The trail to the papaya grove was steep, the earth slick underfoot, the air thick with pine and damp leaves. Lytuca climbed, her breath steady, her hands brushing ferns that lined the path, their fronds cool against her skin. The trees loomed, their fruit hanging heavy, some green and firm, others ripe to bursting, their flesh a vow of sweetness. She reached for one, its weight surprising, its skin mottled but warm. "Ugly but good," she murmured, a smile flickering, her voice soft as if coaxing the fruit to agree. Another caught her eye, larger, its surface soft, too ripe for market but perfect for Han and her grandmother. Her hands moved deftly, filling the basket, each fruit a small triumph, yet her thoughts drifted to Tien, to his work, his promises, the life they were building. The basket grew heavy, and she fetched a sack, her fingers tying it with care, her heart catching at the thought of coins at market, of Han's laughter, of a future less bound by the mountain's grip. The sun climbed, its warmth piercing the mist, casting golden threads across the grove. Lytuca paused, her hands resting on the basket, her eyes tracing the valley below, where the stream glinted like a silver thread. She thought of Han, her small hands clutching papaya, her giggles a spark that lit the dimmest days. She thought of Tien, his hands steady at the factory, counting wooden boards, his voice low as he spoke of a better life. She thought of their years together, lean seasons when hunger clung like damp, nights when Han's cries were her only companion, moments when love was a vow whispered in the dark. Her heart swelled, joy and fear entwined, as if the earth had shifted beneath her. The papayas, the eggs, the greens, they were theirs, dreams made real. Yet a doubt stirred, faint but sharp, like a thorn caught in cloth. Tien's late nights, his brief smiles, the name Lytuca spoken too often by neighbors. She pushed the thought away, her hands tightening on the sack, her steps quickening down the trail. Back at the house, Lytuca sorted the fruit, her hands deft, separating ripe from firm, her thoughts a tangle of hope and dread. She'd sell at market tomorrow, her voice calling through the dust, her wares spread on a mat, papayas, greens, perhaps a few eggs. The coins would buy rice, cloth for Han, a step toward a life less lean. She thought of the market's hum, voices bargaining, the scent of grilled corn and herbs, the neighbors' kind eyes. She thought of her YouTube videos, the camera capturing her work, her words inviting strangers to buy. "Only 100,000 dong," she'd say, her smile bright, her heart heavy with the day's weight. Han would eat, her laughter a balm, and Tien would return, his wages a promise, yet the doubt lingered, a shadow that grew with the sun's arc. She glanced at the path, the dust still from his departure, her heart a fragile bridge between trust and fear. The morning deepened and Lytuca moved to the yard, her hands feeding the chickens, their soft forms darting for grain. Han returned, her grandmother's hand guiding her, her small feet kicking dust, her chatter a melody that softened the air. "Mama, fruit!" she called, her eyes bright, her hands reaching for a papaya. Lytuca knelt, her smile warm, her fingers peeling the fruit, its juice sharp on her skin. "For you," she said, offering a piece. Han's giggle a spark as she chewed, juice dripping down her chin. The sweetness burst on Lytuca's tongue, a surprise that felt like grace, and she laughed, the sound rare and bright, a moment of joy amid the labor. Her grandmother nodded, her eyes kind, her voice low. "She's strong like you." Lytuca's throat tightened, her hand brushing Han's hair, her heart catching at the thought of her daughter's future, of the life they were building, of Asin's role in it. The day waned, the sun climbing higher, casting long shadows over the hills. Lytuca prepared a meal, her basket heavy with greens, the rice steaming in the pot. Han played nearby, her small hands tracing patterns in the dirt, her chatter a thread weaving through the quiet. Lytuca's thoughts turned to Asin, to his work at the wood factory, where he counted boards, recorded outputs, learned the rhythm of a new life. She'd heard him speak of it, his voice steady, 5 to 10 tons of wood a day, boards sorted into A and B, the promise of a raise if he proved himself. The work was good, the Sep said, and Asin was learning, his hands steady, his heart set on their future. Yet the neighbor's words echoed, Lytieuca, his colleague, her name a thorn in Lytuca's thoughts. She stirred the pot, the green scent mingling with smoke, her heart wavering, torn between pride and a fear she couldn't name. She walked to the market, her basket heavy, her steps slow under the afternoon's heat. The stalls hummed, voices calling, the air thick with spice and dust. She spread her mat, her papayas gleaming, her voice rising above the din. "Fresh fruit, 100,000 dong," she called, her smile practiced, her eyes scanning the crowd. Neighbors paused, their hands sorting fruit, their words kind but edged with gossip. "Asin's doing well," one said, her eyes sharp. "But that my girl, always with him." Lytuca's smile faltered, her hands pausing, her heart a stone in her chest. She nodded, her voice steady, but the words clung, a weight she couldn't shake. The coins came, heavy in her palm, but her thoughts were elsewhere, tracing Asin's path, the factory, the woman whose name lingered like smoke. Dusk fell, the sky bruising purple, a crescent moon rising over the hills, its light touching the stream that wound through the valley. Lytuca returned to her grandmother's house, Han in her arms, the trail heavy with dust and doubt. Her grandmother brewed coffee, its scent rich, her hand steady as she poured. "Eat, child," she said, offering papaya, its flesh soft and sweet. Han giggled, her small hands eager, her chatter a balm, but Lytuca's eyes drifted to the path, waiting for Asin's return. The motorbikes hum, a hope now tinged with fear. She thought of their love, a bond forged in lean years, a vow that needed no words, yet the neighbors' whispers, "My always my," stirred a wound she hadn't known. The hum came, faint at first, then steady, and Lytuca stepped outside, Han at her side, the moonlight soft on their faces. Asin appeared, his motorbike slowing, but he wasn't alone. A woman sat behind him, her hair tied back, her laughter light. Lytieuca. Lytuca's breath caught, her heart a fist, her eyes fixed on the scene. Asin stopped, his face tense, his voice low. "Just a colleague," he said, his eyes meeting hers, a plea unspoken. "My," smiled, her hand brushing his arm, her voice warm. "He's kind to give me a ride." Lytuca stood frozen, her hands clutching Han, her voice a whisper. "Where were you?" Asin's jaw tightened, his words careful. "Work ran late." She needed a lift. Lytuca nodded, her throat tight, her heart a storm of doubt and pain. She turned, Han's small hand in hers, the path back to her grandmother's house a blur of dust and moonlight. Inside, the hearth glowed, its warmth a contrast to the chill in her chest. Lytuca fed Han, her small hands eager, her chatter a spark in the quiet. Her grandmother watched, her eyes kind but knowing, her voice low. "Men wander," she said, her hand slicing papaya, its juice sharp on the air. "But you're strong, Tuca." Lytuca nodded, her fingers tracing the bowl's rim, the clay cool against her skin. She thought of Asin, his hands steady at the factory, his voice promising a better life. She thought of Han, her laughter a light that both warmed and unsettled her, and of herself, a woman who'd carried love through years of want. now standing on the edge of a truth she feared. The promise of work was real, boards counted, wages earned, a future stitched from small gains. Yet the image of her laughter, her hand on a sin's arm, burned in her mind, a wound that wouldn't close. They ate, rice and greens warmed by the hearth. Han nestled between her and her grandmother, her giggles a spark in the quiet. Lytuca's thoughts turned inward, a tangle of love and doubt. She thought of the factory where a sin worked, his hand sorting boards, his voice low as he recorded outputs. 5 tons today, 10 tomorrow, boards A and B, a rhythm that promised stability. She thought of his sep, his words kind, his promise of a raise, a chance to lift them from the mountain's grip. She thought of their years together, the nights when hunger was a shadow, the days when Han's birth was a joy unmarred by the world's judgment. She thought of this moment, a light that both warmed and unsettled her, a vow tested by a woman's laughter, a motorbike's hum, a truth she couldn't unsee. The evening deepened, the fire's glow casting shadows across the room, the bamboo walls softening in the light. Lytuca cleared the bowls, her hands steady, the clink of clay a rhythm in the quiet. Han slept, her breath soft, her small form curled on a mat, her laughter a memory that lingered. Her grandmother hummed, her hands folding a quilt, her presence a steady anchor. Lytuca stepped outside, the air cool, the stars sharp against the dark, their light a map of questions without answers. The mountain loomed, its silence vast, the valley hidden beyond its folds, the stream's murmur a faint lullaby. She gazed down the path the sin had ridden, the bike's tracks faint in the dust, her heart a fragile bridge between love and betrayal. The promise of work was theirs, a dream made real, yet the years of trust had left echoes, doubts that whispered in the quiet, fears that Han's laughter might not drown them. She lingered, the scent of earth and papaya wrapping her, the night's chill brushing her skin like a memory. She thought of the grove, its fruit a seed of their future, the chickens growing strong, the greens curling toward the sun. She thought of their dreams, small but stubborn like roots breaking stone, and of a sin, his hands steady, his heart hers, yet touched by a shadow she couldn't name. She thought of Han, her daughter's future, a dream both fierce and frail, and of herself, a woman who'd carried love through years of want, now standing on the edge of a truth that burned. The stars held no answers, only light, and Lytuca let the stillness hold her, a breath before dawn's demands. Tomorrow she'd rise, gather eggs, feed Han, walk to market, her steps sure despite the weight. Han would laugh, chasing chicks or butterflies, her voice a melody that softened the yard's edges. A sin would return, his hands steady, his eyes bright with hope or heavy with truths unspoken. Life would unfold, patient as the hills, its rhythm unbroken, fire, food, laughter, love. The promise of work would carry them, a path to a future unwritten, a chance to outrun the shadow of doubt. But in her soul a question lingered, delicate as moonlight. Would this love hold, or would it slip, like mist through bamboo, leaving only traces to hold? Somewhere in the valley's hush, their future waited, and here on the mountain, her family breathed, a fragile circle of love and hope, its edges softened by a sky too vast to promise forever.